All right. Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fredland. And as always, we are joined by our panel tonight, Rob Washam, Chris Jones, John Somsky, and Jim Reed. And what we're going to do tonight, let me thank our sponsors. Even though they are shut down, even though we're waiting for them not very patiently to reopen. We just really want live poker back. I see some head noddings. Like there's so many of us that are like, I'm dying to play live poker again. But Running Aces, Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel, as well as Learn Pro Poker, website AMP. Thanks to you guys for sponsoring the show. Episode 175. And today I thought we're going to do a quick check-in. I get some comments. I get some questions from people saying, how are you doing with everything that's happening in the world? So I thought, why not just check in as a team, as a community, and kind of talk about how we're doing as a panel in light of the coronavirus. And then we'll dig into the strategy piece. Chris Jones has a hand that he recently played on ACR. And so one thing I want to make sure you're aware of, I know we beat this drum a little bit, but go to rec.poker/resources. That's where we've got all of this stuff. People are saying, hey, what's the code for this? What's the partnership you have with that? What's the benefit for that? We have it all out there, rec.poker/resources. I know one thing that a ton of people are taking advantage of is this ACR. If you have never been on America's Card Room and you sign up, don't sign up until you have this code ready, because when you sign up with this code, you can use either RecPoker or Rec Elite or Rec Rake, and you get some additional benefits. It's all there on the website, so check that out. But if you're new to online poker, use one of those codes. You get like Rake back, or you get some extra bonuses. And you can also buy Poker Tracker 4, and we've got some custom-built HUDs, heads-up displays, that we are making available to the folks that sign up through our link. And one more thing I want to quickly call out is our partnership with rec.poker. Fantastic content, fantastic guys, James Splitsuit Sweeney and the whole crew over there. And we've got a relationship with them now that'll get you a free week of Core. This is their primary content, fantastic program. Costs like $5 a week, but you can get your first week free. Go to rec.poker/RecPoker and enter the code RecPoker. Simple as that. Do it. Get your first week free. Check it out and let us know what you think. So with that, panel, welcome. How are we doing? There's a thumbs up, which comes across great on a podcast, Rob.
I'm doing great.
Rob's doing great. Let's go. Well,
I stay home. I've been staying home for the last month. Last time I was in the office was March 16th. And I'm a little older, in case you haven't noticed. I'm beyond that. I'm one of those at-risk people, right? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting in a meeting on Monday, March 16th, and there was like 10 people in this conference room, and I think we could virtually be only 2 feet apart. And I'm going, well, this just isn't working. So I went home that night and haven't been back since.
Yeah.
Been working at home, and it's worked out pretty well.
Have you been anybody in your family or friendship circle at all that's been impacted directly by the virus?
Not at this time.
Good.
Every weekend, we do a little Zoom meeting with my family. So my son and his wife, my daughter, her husband, and my 2 grandkids all do a Zoom meeting. And so we, hour and a half. So we just get together and talk about what you've been binging lately, because a lot of binging of TV going on. I don't know if anybody likes Ozark, but we just finished binging that on Saturday.
I just finished like season 1. I thought, I don't know if I'll do it or not. And then I got hooked. So I finished season 1. Yep.
We just finished season 3 last on Saturday. So we're all.
And that's all there is, right? Is it just 3 seasons?
So far.
Okay.
So far. But there will be more.
I saw Jonesy and I saw Jim acknowledge that they're Ozark fans too. John doesn't move his head very much. So I didn't know if he's in or not.
I actually just started watching it. I'm about halfway through the first season.
It really catches you. It just grabs you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it does.
Wow.
Well, I'm hoping that I actually figure out how to launder money. That way, if I have need a little side income, I'll have that available.
So this is just a research project for you. It's not entertainment.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So that's pretty much what I've been doing. And then on Sundays, I try to play 3 or 4, maybe 5 poker tournaments on ACR in the afternoon and see if I can build my bankroll.
And are you playing more online than you were before, or is this pretty much what your rhythm has been for online poker?
Well, no, I'm playing a lot more than I was before. I usually don't play during the week too much. I might spin up a sit and go or something. And then I don't do much on Saturday, but on Sunday, last couple Sundays now, I start at about 11 o'clock and I start signing up for the $6 tournaments or whatever. I do 3 or 4. I usually have 4 tables going or 3 or 4 tables going, and I might rebuy once or twice, depending, and just see what happens. I've been doing that last couple of Sundays, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, you had a nice bank, didn't you? Didn't you have a nice score?
Yeah, I got a 660 yesterday for 300 some bucks or something like that.
Sweet, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Chris, how are you doing now during this whole ordeal?
I'm catching up on Ozark too whenever I have a chance. So that's been my kind of coronavirus watch session. But yeah, no, I've been home since the 13th, actually, one week work day before Rob, and have not really left the house much since then, and doing all my work from home. It's been a pretty easy transition. We've had to, so my work does a lot of like meetings and classes and conferences and things that bring people together, and so we've had to reshape those all to be virtual experiences, and I've had to learn how to do live streaming and things like that, which I'd never done before, but mostly it's been going pretty well. And then personally, a lot of my family works in healthcare, so I don't have anybody who's in my immediate circle who's been impacted, but I'm definitely sort of nervous about all those people who are sort of on the front lines, and they're definitely seeing lots of cases, and it's a really scary time for them, and I'm grateful for anyone who's doing that kind of work right now.
Do you have a chance to talk to them much, the ones that are on the front line?
Yeah, a little bit. I've caught up with both some friends and family a little bit, and I think in some cases, especially in Minnesota, because I have family in other parts of the country where I think they're a little bit more overwhelmed in terms of the number of cases. So in Minnesota, I think they're anticipating it coming a little bit later, the like actual peak of it. So they're almost kind of bored in some ways. Like they have less sort of to do than they normally do, at least right now. But they're expecting that to obviously peak and change. And then elsewhere, I know that it's really, they're overwhelming days. I mean, it's just, and there's a lot of fear, and they're running out of equipment, and are they doing, all the right things in all the right places? So,
Are they feeling, are they feeling the support from their community and
yeah,
at least feeling like we're grateful for what they're doing?
I mean, that's what I mean. And every time I talk to them, I'm just like, if you guys all quit, we'd all be in a lot of trouble. Yeah. So thank you for doing what you do. And it's great.
Good. How about you, John?
Well, I've been doing pretty good. I haven't been into work for quite a while as well. Been working from home. That works out pretty well. I also binge watched Mandalorian, which is the Star Wars series on Disney Plus. And that was quite good. And it is a little interesting. I've been fighting off a cold now for about 2 weeks. So I have been sick, but I'm pretty sure that it's not COVID, that it's just a cold. I mean, I have a productive cough. It's not dry, no fever, no trouble breathing. Mm-hmm. But it's still, it's one of those things where you kind of hate being sick, and I don't want to leave the house in case I'm wrong, because I don't know for sure, but I think like 90% it's just cold.
Yeah, but it's still right in the back of your mind, like, well, you're watching so carefully for that. Right.
And I don't want to get anyone else sick with this, or particularly if it were COVID, definitely wouldn't want to transmit that to anyone else.
Yeah. Okay, but things are manageable for you right now at this point.
Yep. I did finally get around. Took this opportunity to sign up for ACR. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while, but I wanted to make sure that I would have enough dedicated time to actually clear any bonuses that you get for the deposit bonus, because you only have a fixed period of time to do that, and my schedule doesn't always allow for me to do much playing. But I went ahead and bit the bullet, got Poker Tracker 4 up and running. Now I just have to figure out how to. I play from two different computers. I have a desktop and a laptop, and I want to synchronize the Poker Tracker 4 database on the two machines. So I'm investigating routes to handle that. And there's a number of different approaches, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best one going to be for me.
Well, it's too bad you don't know anything about technology.
Yeah, I wish I was a computer programmer or something like that.
That would come in really handy right now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, hey, I know some people that can help you. Then I'm like, well, duh, he's a programmer. I think he's okay.
Yeah, it's just, I just have to figure out what approach. It sounds like once it gets imported, it can copy the hands to a different folder, and then I can make the machines grab it from each other, or I could have a single database that both instances of Poker Tracker write to. But then I would either need to always have it on my laptop if I wanted to travel with it, and that would have to be on and available, or I would have to leave it on my desktop. Then I couldn't play when I wasn't at home. What I'm probably leaning towards is I'll just make it import the hands from the other machine. After it loads them into Poker Tracker, it'll write them to a different spot on the disk, and then my other machine will read them up. And anyway, it's boring for everyone listening, but that's one of the things I want to figure out how to do.
Well, it's not boring for Jim Reed. I know he eats this stuff up, so he's nodding his head. He's like, yeah, because he can help you out with that too if you're trying to think it through. Because I know he's walked through this stuff a few times. But
no, I'm legitimately nerding out at this puzzle to solve. This is the kind of thing that I get a big kick out of. John probably has more experience with Poker Tracker than I do, but those are the two ways I was thinking about doing it as well, John. That's so fun. Enjoyed that puzzle.
And I know I had this working back when, this would have been like 2011, probably around 2011 is when I stopped, after Black Friday. But I had it set up with Poker Tracker 3 so I could work on either my laptop or my desktop at that point in time. So I can get it again. I'm not that worried about it.
Well, Jim, how are you? How are things going now for you? You've got a lot of stuff going on, but during the middle of this pandemic, what's the story?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. About a year ago, I started trying to transition to doing more work from home in my business, more project management and that kind of thing. So I've been lucky. Business has slowed down. We're definitely all tightening our belts, but I'm still able to do some from home, which makes me feel better. And my wife is still recovering from a broken collarbone, so she's already several weeks into home rest. I wouldn't say it's been restful, because recovery from a broken collarbone can be pretty painful and frustrating, but she's been really doing well with it. So other than that, I mean, I've been trying to play a little more. I haven't really had that much time because I'm trying to wrap up I'm trying to use this downtime to get at some things on my list to find out if I don't have enough time is actually the reason why I haven't been doing them, or if there's actually a better reason. So I'm finding out a little. So that's been pleasant. Mostly just calling people more and visiting less. Talking to my parents on the phone more. I've got some family down in the States, and just checking in with them a little more often. I know I've got some people in my family that are at risk, so I'm taking my role as a intermediary pretty seriously and trying to just make sure that I'm taking all the precautions I can to protect them. I've definitely noticed people in the shops out here, all the stores are taking great precautions and letting at-risk folks come in for the first hour of the day, putting out spacing markers and that kind of thing. And everyone's pulling in the same direction, which is nice to see the community coming together and everyone taking it seriously. But I can tell people are stressed out. The people in the shops working the counters, and maybe people aren't taking it as seriously as they think they should, or maybe they're not, being treated with the kind of respect that I think people on the panel here agree that they should. And, so it's just going to be a test for some people. But all in all, I'm encouraged by what we've seen.
Good. Yeah. And I think, that's the reality. Unless you have somebody that, is touching this thing firsthand, you're sort of left to the whim of which news reports do you believe and all those sorts of things. Chris has the advantage, so to speak, of being in contact with people who are on the front lines and can give you direct, things. We've had a couple of people that we know. One is an at-risk person, another person who's not considered at risk, but they have it. And how do you walk through that? How do you hear the stories about what's actually happening to them? And it's very, very, very difficult for them. So we've got a few vulnerable people that we actually buy the groceries for and drop off. Well, how does that work? We want to make sure that we're safe dropping that off for them. So how do we make sure that what was picked up in the grocery store is safe for them? So there's all of those logistical things. There's, we just have Easter and we're standing 20 feet away from my mom and her husband yelling Happy Easter. And I mean, all of these weird sort of things. My son, was over in Paris. He's going to do a year. About a month ago, we started the process of trying to get him back. And it was just a nightmare because just a number of reasons I won't get into on the air. Finally, he got back. We've quarantined him for 2 weeks. We pick him up tomorrow, so we get to actually see him for the first time. So just, all of these weird sort of things, right? And I think we've all talked about, we're pretty lucky here on the panel. We've all got things that we can do virtually. Some people aren't as fortunate. The jobs have been lost or cut way back. And so I think, hopefully, for those of you who are out there listening, are listening to us going, well, we don't have a lot of changes. We don't. We acknowledge that we don't, but we recognize that a lot of you are hurting. And if there's anything that we can do as a RecPoker community to somehow make your life a little better, we can't necessarily bring you groceries and all of those things. But if you're sitting there going, man, I just could use a shot in the arm of something good. If you think poker and something RecPoker does could provide some of that, please let us know. Like, I think we all, to a person, want to be part of being on the right side of history here and just adding to the beauty in some little small way. So please reach out to us and let us know how we can help you in some way get through this process a little bit better. But I just wanted to kind of acknowledge what's going on in our world and have you guys check in and let people know that are now saying, hey, how's Chris? How's Rob? How's Jim? How's John? And let people know, because this is bigger than poker. And we love poker, and we don't get us wrong. And we're going to get into strategy here, but I thought it was worth at least taking a moment to acknowledge what's going on and kind of touch base with all of us with what's going on. So thanks for taking a minute, guys, and sharing that stuff. And we'll just kind of keep on pressing forward. Who knows how long this is going to be, right? The estimates are across the board. All right, well, let's shift gears. Chris, if you want to kind of help us get into some strategy stuff now. Now we've acknowledged the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And now make us a better poker player, Chris.
Yeah, well, I'll try my best. And speaking of all these things, I think the other thing that this is, on a non-serious note, in terms of like not as serious as like the people who work in the front lines and all the people who might have this and are struggling with it and all those kind of things. This has really made me appreciate live poker in a big way. Like the fact that we got to do that sometimes and just go play, and sometimes you'd have a bad beat and you but like it was what a great sort of honor and privilege it was to be able to do that, and I can't wait till we can do it again. But anyway,
well said. Well said.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that to come back. But for the time being, what we have is online poker, and this is an online poker hand. And I think it's one that isn't really that unusual, but for that reason, I think it's one that a lot of us may struggle with how to play it. I think there's a lot of different ways to approach this hand. I know some people in our audience particularly hate this hand, particularly Grandpa George. And this is, I think, hopefully we can have a good conversation about the good old Ace King. So this is ACR. It's a $15 tournament. It's a $40K guaranteed. We've just reached in the money. So the bubble has just burst. We are at the 4,000, 8,000 level with a 960 ante. So we're sitting in the hijack. It folds to us, and we have ace of spades, king of clubs, and we have 663K behind. So that's about 85 big blinds. And so we open to a min, which has been kind of the table norm. I sometimes level up to something like on this I would sort of do 18K or something, but I've been this has been really standard at this table to just do a min raise, so I'm following along, and I raised to 16K. So it folds to the small blind, who puts out a 3-bet for 64K, and they have a stack of 291K behind, so about 45 big blinds. And I'm going to stop there and ask about what is your approach with these stack sizes in this moment of the tournament with this hand, just having been 3-bet.
Well, I can go first. I like to go first because then everybody else can tell me how wrong I am. But with this stack size, with 45 bigs in this dynamic, I probably rip. Part of the reason is we're in the money already. I'm looking to build a stack. But I think for me, the biggest part is, we're not at risk if we do rip. But positionally, if we're opening from the hijack, our range should be pretty wide. It's not, obviously not as wide as the button or cutoff, but it should be fairly wide. And the small blind, now with the bubble bursting, is looking to increase their stack. Their 3-bet range should be pretty wide out of the small blind. So I like ace king against that range quite a bit. I think we're going to get a fair number of folds. And obviously, if they have aces or kings, we're in trouble. Otherwise, we're racing. And I'm frankly, once I put in the 16K, obviously you can slow play it or whatever. But it's hard to get paid. I think if you hit your ace or your king, by pocket 10s or pocket 9s or that sort of thing. So I'm frankly willing to put it in here. It's a different situation if it's pre bubble, I guess, for me.
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead, Jim. No, you go ahead.
Well, for me, maybe sometimes I feel like this is a little outdated, but I still just for me, ace king is a shoving hand more than a see how it works out hand, because I don't want to let them off the hook with those like pocket 10s, pocket jacks. They see the ace or the king on the flop, and now you're not going to get paid. But depth has a lot to do with it, and you don't want to be in a spot where you're ripping and you're only getting called by kings and aces, right? So I think with this stack depth, you're probably just after the bubble like that, you're probably getting called by worse, or at least a flip, which I don't think you mind given the pot odds involved. Out of position, I think it's got to be a shove. In position, it's attractive to see the flop and see it, and you're always gonna the times when they flop 2-pair, as most of the time what's going to happen is they're going to flop a worse 1-pair and you're going to get paid. I get that. For me, I think I rip it given the stack size. If he had more, that would be different maybe. Or if he had this amount or less, I think I'm ripping.
Yeah, I don't know that I can justify going all in. I mean, you're going to be putting in 600,000, right?
291 or no? They have 291,000.
Yeah, you're going to be putting in 291,000. I might. Well, yeah, and a 3-bet's going to be pretty much that anyway, isn't it?
Yep.
If you 3-bet, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think we either are, just not to interrupt you, but I think our option really here is: do we flat and C3, or do we put the small blind all in?
Yeah, and I think I like what Steve and Jimbo said, that maybe we just put the guy all in. In game, me personally, I probably would have done the same thing. I probably would have just called. To see a flop. But I did that a few times over on Sunday, and I was always wrong. So,
one thing maybe I'll add too is that this player, I didn't have a lot of hands with them, but this was one of the reasons I elected to call was I think they had not 3-bet in about 30 or 35 hands, and they had a very low VPIP rate too. So they were not playing very many hands, and we're not getting out of line. Now, granted, I think it was like 30 to 35 hands. I'd have to go back and look at the tracker, but they were not a very active player. Which maybe shouldn't slow me down, because Ace King does well against most 3-betting hands, even against an inactive player. But it is what led me to say, well, I've got position here. I can C3. I can, I'm most likely going to be able to react to how this player plays the rest of the hand. And it's not really worth it right now to give up half of my stack against hands that might have me really dominated.
So how does that translate into your decision when you say, okay, well, they haven't 3-bet at all, even though it's a small sample size. They haven't 3-bet at all. They seem pretty tight. So apparently what I'm hearing is, so when they 3-bet, you're giving that more respect.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sort of, when it transitions into you and your decision, does that mean that you're thinking, okay, I know I don't have any fold equity because they have a big enough hand, they're probably going to call off? Is that how it translates in, or is it more of a fear that they have aces or kings here, even though I have blockers? Like,
it's both of those, but ultimately, then I go back to some of that, and this is maybe where my logic starts to fray a little. But ultimately, I start to think about I think some people often call Ace King the best drawing hand, right? And in some ways, when I'm faced with somebody who I think are they capable? Now we'll find out that some of my assumptions here are not correct, but spoiler alert. But I'm thinking that somebody, best case, maybe there's Ace Queen out there, but I'm really putting them on a very tight range right now, and I'm thinking that I don't necessarily want to get it in with that tight of a range, because I'm behind. Even if we're racing, I'm not sure I want to race for half my stack. It'd be really nice to sort of see how this hand develops before I. But that's the struggle with Ace King, right? It's really a powerful hand, but it's also one that can be in a lot of trouble even against pocket 9s or pocket 10s.
If those hands call you, yeah,
right.
If you don't think you have fold equity,
right. And I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
How many people are left in the tournament? I mean, you said you're in the money. Are you just barely in the money with?
Yeah, we've
30 more spots being paid, or
the bubble has just burst. Within, I think we've eliminated maybe 10 or 20 people. I'm trying to remember. This is a big tournament because it was a 40K guaranteed. So, I'm trying to remember.
One thing to note is, after the bubble bursts, people's ranges are very different than before the bubble bursts.
It's a very good point.
So, to my mind, that would decrease the emphasis that I'd put on your read that that player has not 3-bet in 30 some odd hands, because their play may be very different once they've reached the money.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And just to throw my thought out here, in game, my natural knee-jerk reaction would have been probably to call, but after listening to the discussion, I think I like the shove all in better.
So let's talk about that, because I think that is this is the really kind of the inflection point of the hand. Although there's another one that we'll talk about. I did end up calling this, by the way. But so at what point do we start flatting with Ace King? I mean, is it a 60 big blind stack? Is it a 70 big blind stack? What is the cutoff where this is no longer where we want to sort of say, whoa, wait a minute, we gotta like make sure we're good here?
So to my mind, there's a couple of things that go into it. First is we have about double the stack that our opponent has. So if we were to lose, we still have a comfortable stack to play. So that is part of the reason. If we had the same size stack, I don't know that I would be as comfortable shoving. I'd have to think about it a lot more. It's not as clear cut to me. But because we can still play successfully afterwards, we can do that. And at that stack size, I think we can still get calls from hands that we have beat. We aren't going to force them to play perfectly. And that's a judgment call, on whether or not you think they will or not. But in my mind, they will still call with hands that we have beat. Ace Queen might still call. Probably not Ace Jack or Ace 10. You will still be getting calls from Queens, Jacks, 10s, maybe 9s, depending upon the player. Of course, they're going to be calling with hands that beat you to the Aces and Kings, but you do have blockers for both of those. So I think it wouldn't take too many more big blinds. Like if they were sitting on 50 to 60 big blinds, I don't know that it would be a shove with this size betting, because you made it 2 big blinds. They raised to 8. And now you're going to put them in for the remaining, 37 big blinds left. So if they still had 45 big blinds after that, I don't know that it would be. You could maybe then just do a 3-bet and not do the shove all in. But I don't know. That's basically my take on it at this point.
Anyone else? What's your cutoff at this point where you would either consider a flat or not at least not a shove all in? What does your opponent have to have? What kind of stack?
I think there's 2 cutoffs. I think there's a less and a more sort of thing. I think if they're putting in like half, they're doing this like to half their stack, I'd be like more tempted to frankly just flat and see what happens, because that just looks so strong. Like, because I know I have no fold equity. Like if they go to 64K out of their 150K stack, I might be more tempted to flat just because I know I have no fold equity. They're going to even call me with their Jack 10. I'd almost rather see a flop there and see. I don't know if that's right or not, because you can look at it both ways, right? Because they're not going to fold their Ace 10 then either. But are they actually betting half their stack with Ace 10? Like that just looks like such a strong play. So I think there's sort of that piece, and then there's something bigger, which probably is more like a 60 big blind stack for me, a little bit there, and that might be. In a way, flatting there at that point, I'd still be tempted to ship, and I think this is a leak in my game. I still might be tempted to ship there because of the late position raise, the small blind 3-bet. I just think the dynamics are there that I've got a good range, but I'm forcing my opponent to play optimally there by shoving into 60 bigs versus 40. Like to John's point, I still think Ace Queen's going to call me in a post bubble situation. And if I'm willing to accept those other races with the pocket 4s, 5, 6s, that's fine too. But I think for me at that higher level, it's almost more like an underrepresentation of my hand. Like I'm just flatting there, and I'm really, in a sense, underrepresenting Ace King. So if an ace comes, they're going to feel very confident that their Ace Jack or Ace Queen are good, and I've underrepresented my hand. So I think it's pot control, but it's also almost a tactical, strategic underrepresentation of my hand.
I think when I look at it, it's not as much the stack depth. It has to do with the number of players that are left. How many tables are we talking about? And I've noticed there's a big difference in the types of tournaments that I've been playing on ACR on Sundays, where I got to the final 20 in one tournament, and the average big blinds was 20. And then I get to I'm in another tournament, and there's 1,000 people left, and the average big blinds is 250. So it's you look at what is the average right now. I mean, is the average big blinds? Are you above average in big blinds with your 60, or what do you have? 85 big blinds. Is that about average, or are you way over the limit? If the average is around 40, I could go all in, and even if I lose, even if he plays perfectly and calls me off with aces, I still have an average stack. And so I'm right in the mix to be able to finish out that tournament strong. So that has more to do with it than the actual number of big blinds I happen to have. It's what I have in relation to the field.
I'd be curious. Oh, go ahead, John.
Stack at this time, just for context, I had a top 20 stack, and there were I'm trying to remember how, but there were quite a few players left. I mean, we were in that very flat part of in the money where you're not really making any money if you level up a little bit here.
I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, and I haven't done the math, so forgive me if this is a very ignorant question. But okay, so we opened to 16, they raised to 64, all right, and we have 85 bigs to start. They have 45 bigs behind, whatever that is. Let's say, just hypothetically, we know they have pocket jacks, and we know that they're not going to fold. Let's just say we know that's the situation, that they only raise this amount when they have pocket jacks. So we absolutely know they have pocket jacks, or they accidentally told their buddy, "Hey, I got jacks."
This is online, Steve. Come on.
I mean, what is your play then? If you know they have jacks and you know they're not going to fold, and forgive me if this is ignorant, but I can still see justification for calling. Let's say if we call and we hit an ace or a king, we know that they're not going to pay us off anymore. So if we call, then we see if we hit an ace or a king, we get to see 3 cards. And if we win, we're not going to win anymore. But if we lose, we're not going to lose anymore. Or we shove, and we know that they're going to call for this big stack, but we get to see all 5. So either we're going to lose the 350K, or we're going to add 350K. You know what I mean? But we get to see all 5 cards. I don't know what the mathematics would tell me, but what's your guys' gut on that? Which would you prefer in that, just immediately post-bubble situation?
I think the shove, because I think you want to with the dead money that's in the pot, depending upon when you learn this information, but assuming the 16 and the 64 are already in the pot, that's enough to make it, whatever. Yeah. Right. That's enough to make it a plus EV call, because you're basically 50-50. You're behind slightly against jacks, but with the dead money in the pot, from a chip equity point of view, you're basically break even. At this point in the tournament with ICM considerations, chip equity is practically what you have, because it's such a flat structure at this point. So I would rather see all 5 cards where you're 50-50 versus if you're only seeing 3 cards, because in the other case, you're only going to see 3 cards.
Right.
And then you're not going to you're not getting as good of a price.
You're not getting 50% equity at that point.
Right.
For hand equity.
Right. Right.
But you're protecting your downside loss.
This is true.
That's the trade. That's the curiosity, right? That's the trade-off. You're only risking 64 instead of 350. So that's all. And
and one thing that and one of the reasons I think I called here is I think I would have been shoving a lot of times in my poker life, but I've been really trying to really think about spots where I am increasing my variance, because I do think, I think that against the field on a typical ACR tournament, that I probably have an advantage post flop. I mean, not to be, whatever, but I think I have an advantage post flop against the field, basically. And so I want to find those spots where I can put myself in those positions and know how to take advantage of that, versus just turning to coin flips too often, which I think is something that has been an instinct of mine. But I understand there's that kind of that equity side, that EV side of things, where we're like, well, but you're supposed to take those coin flips because in the end you also have fold equity potentially, and between the 50-50 flip, or the whatever it is, 45-55 flip, and the fact that you probably have some fold equity in there, maybe, hopefully, you really are supposed to make that shove there. So that's the part where I'm really trying to figure out balancing between when do I set myself up to try to take those flips, and when do I set myself up to try to maybe play more poker and play against players who I feel like I have potentially an advantage to getting to post flop with them.
So when you think about like that skill edge or whatever you want to call it, especially in position, I mean, are you actually thinking about things like this at the table? Like let's say, for example, you think that they 3-bet with a range that includes eights and up, pocket eights and higher. I mean, because part of that skill edge would say, okay, is this the kind of opponent that if a flop comes queen 4-3, they're going to check fold to a continuation bet? I mean, are you actually kind of thinking like that sort of thing? Or are they going to continuation bet everything and then I'm going to fold ace king on a queen high flop? Like,
I think they're going to play. I mean, not necessarily this specific player, because but the field I think is going to play very, very face up on a 3-bet pot with this amount of stacks left. I feel like there are a lot of flops, even if I don't hit them with my ace king, that I can take advantage of.
Yeah, that's kind of my question. Like, do you think you can win pots without hitting?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I'm not just flatting this, saying, okay, well, hope I hit an ace or king, otherwise I'm done. That's not my plan. If I flat here,
and you're deep enough that you can do that.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
Well, anyway. So that's kind of, but anyway, I did end up flatting, and it may be a mistake here. It may be a spot where I really need to look at it a little closer, but I did end up flatting, and the flop comes ace of clubs, 6 of hearts, 3 of spades. So yay. We hit our ace, and again we have ace of spades, king of clubs. We got a rainbow flop with an ace and a pretty innocuous board. The small blind into the pot of 145K leads out after their 3-bet, following up on their c-betting their 3-bet to 36K. So a pretty small c-bet here. What's our move?
Flop seems dry enough that given the stacks, I think you can either call or raise. If it was a more dynamic flop, I'd probably be raising here, but I can see it's a good chance to call here, keep your range wide, let him take another stab on the turn, and then you'll be in a spot to get stacks in.
Yeah, I think you can underrepresent.
Which I think we want to do. Yeah.
You can underrepresent your hand here for sure. Like, you could easily have pocket 7s, 8s, or 9s the way that you played it, and be calling to see one more. Like that, you don't have to have an ace here to make a post flop call. And I think your opponent should know that.
Yeah, I'm calling this kind of flop pretty much. Even if I have pocket aces or pocket 6s or something, I'm just flatting this for sure, because my opponent has initiative. They don't have that much behind now. Let's see. We have a pot now. If I call, we have a pot about 220K, and they've got about 250K behind. So they've got just about a pot size bet going into the turn if I call here. So this is a card that I am flatting most of the time.
And you want to keep their bluffs in here for the turn.
Yep.
You raise there, then say goodbye to any more value.
Yep. Anyone want to argue for a raise here?
If we were actually deeper, I'd consider raising a very small amount just to get the last chip in play by the river. But I don't think you need to here. If like I said, if this was a flush draw flop or something with more obvious straights for a 3-betting range, then that'd be a better argument for it. But I think it's right to call. One of the things that, like, the villain here has chosen a small bet size to keep their range wide so that they can do it with a lot. And the best way to combat that strategically is to continue with a wide range yourself, to make so that you sort of foil their plan to exert more leverage than they actually are with their chips. So I think it's the right play to call behind with a wide range and shake it up on the turn.
All right.
We kind of talked about this in our last couple of seminars, right? we talked a couple seminars back about static versus dynamic flops. This is definitely a static flop. Whoever's ahead right now, his next card is not going to change that very much. It's going to be very difficult for one card to change the dynamic of who's ahead and who's behind. And then we also talked about, on the last one, we talked about pot odds and stack to pot ratio and that sort of thing. And when you're talking in those terms, the betting size that he made is based on what we talked about. When you have a static flop, your opponent is going to be inelastic. So in other words, Chris at this point is going to be inelastic. He's either going to call or fold regardless of your bet size. So you can bet smaller knowing that if he's going to fold, he's going to fold anyway. And if he's going to call, you're not risking as much. And you know that the dynamic or the board is not going to change that much. Who's ahead and who's behind. And he set it up perfectly for that shove on the turn because he's got the perfect stack size, just a little over a pot size bet left in his stack. He's got that perfect stack size to just jam on the turn. I mean, he's playing it really, really well, if you ask me. Your opponent is playing it very, very well. And you haven't given him any idea how strong you are yet.
Right, right.
Yep, I think a lot of the things that we've talked about in our last couple of seminars is coming into play just in this one hand.
Yeah, the strongest move I've made is calling that 3-bet, and that that should put his a little bit on edge, but he's definitely playing this. He's setting himself up well for this turn.
Yeah, and what do you put if you're the 3-better and somebody calls your 3-bet? Right away, well, he probably doesn't have aces. He probably doesn't have kings. He probably doesn't have queens, maybe queens. Probably doesn't have ace king, but maybe ace king. But he doesn't have aces or kings, right?
Yeah, right.
So, he's looking at that range right away, knowing that, well, chances of him having top pair, well, maybe, you're not going to call with an ace jack or an ace queen or an ace 10. You might call with ace king, maybe, but more than likely you're going to go over the top of him with an ace king or with pocket aces. So he's looking at an ace high flop and he's putting pressure on you, knowing that you don't the chances of you having those big cards are very small.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's playing it just the way you would play it, regardless of the 2 cards you had.
Right, right. Well, the turn is the 4 of spades. So again, we have an ace of clubs, 6 of hearts, 3 of spades, 4 of spades board. And the villain shoves 255K. We have 579K back. What are we doing?
I'm fist pump calling. And only because I've underrepresented my hand so strongly. And to Rob's point, do I have a lot of aces here? Maybe, maybe not. I think he, if he's doing this, he could be bluffing, but thinking that I'm going to fold my ace 10, my ace jack. Some of the aces that I do have, I might still relinquish. So I maybe not fist pumping, but I'm pretty happy with calling this off here.
And you're hoping to see. What are you hoping to see? Oh,
I'm hoping to see, kind of what ace jack, ace 10, ace queen, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, any of that sort of thing. Because I don't think he's shoving sets here. He could be. He kind of set up that pot size bet. But I just think there's the hands that we beat. It could be another ace king for that matter, even though we block it. But I do think ace queen, ace jack, ace 10 are probably making this sort of play. I think he's making the play with kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s. I mean, or at least I have to keep them in the range. At least to the extent that I give them full weight or not, is one thing. But that's in this stage of a tournament. I'm getting 2-1 on my money. I think I'm good more than 1 out of 3 times here. I go with it.
It's too bad we've got the ace of spades because you'd love for him to be able to have the ace of spades here because that would unlock a couple of those like ace 2. Ace 5 of spades, right. Wheel aces that you'd be able to 3-bet and then shove when you turn the flush draw. because we've got it, that takes out some of those natural bluff candidates here. But as played, if he was 3-betting ace queen for value, he's betting ace queen for value here too.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think you're definitely ahead of some of that value, even though you're behind the sets. So yeah, I think he's, we were talking about how tight he'd been for the last 30 hands. But of course, those were the 30 hands right before the bubble. So he is likely to be more tight in that spot. And so if you think he's got any bluffs in him at all here, I think I'm all about Steve's fist pump call here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are those, and I thought of this early on. I've looked ahead, but I mean, I thought of this early on when you get 3-bet out of the small blind, because I think about the hands that I do like to 3-bet out of the small blind include a lot of small suited aces. To me, that's such a great 3-bet candidate because I don't mind folding to a 4-bet. That's a pretty easy getaway. So I think a lot of people are doing that. So there are some of those suited ace combos that do connect with this board. But I still take my chances there, I think.
Yeah, I think that I don't think you have a choice here. Here's Steve's words. You've underrepresented your hand. He's not going to put you on that strong of a hand. So he could very well be making a move with less than top pair. He might have a middle pair, like we were talking about, kings, queens, jacks, tens, any of those. Not putting you on that strong, as strong a hand as you have. So you almost have to call.
Yeah. And actually, one of the reasons, I think I called this pretty quickly. And one of the things that I was considering during this is that I feel like for villain, if they had a really strong hand, like a set here, that a check here on this turn would have been a superior play.
Right.
And so I was actually surprised. The villain turned over ace 6 of diamonds, which both surprises me from the 3-bet piece, but I'm listening to this and thinking I probably should have considered those suited aces a bit more. But it also surprises me because I feel like that's a great hand based on the way that this hand has been played. That I guess you think you're going to get value from my aces, but that's a pretty I think you can get more value from your hidden ace 6 here by checking this turn and potentially because that looks pretty weak, right? To see bet out after the 3-bet and then check that turn. I feel like that's a spot, and so I was not expecting to see that much strength.
I don't like his play either, his or her play, because I do think if you have like 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, maybe up to that high, maybe jacks, up to jacks, you're going to play this exactly the same way, where you raise and then you just flat pre-flop and then you call flop just to see one more. And if he shoves turn, he gets you to fold all of those hands, which is a disaster for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's only getting it's only a shove for value if you have ace king. I mean, you might even fold ace queen here because of the way he could have ace king. You know what I mean? Like, I think you have the only hand that he beats that calls his shove. That's why I don't like the shove at all either, frankly.
Yeah.
Because if he checks you, you're going to put him in so fast, his head's going to spin, right?
Right. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And I think he gets, I think I would probably be doing that with worse aces.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't think I can get here with kings. Kings is a hand that I'm not gonna be calling that 3-bet, but it's possible I do that with
nines?
jacks and 10s and 9s too.
Yeah.
After that action, so I think he can get paid off a lot more often with a check back here on this turn.
Yeah, and he's got the board pretty locked. I mean, I know there's some weird sorts of draws and stuff that come into play here, but he's never going to fold his 2 pair. So if you have a set, whatever, I mean, I just think, I think his highest value play there is a check back on the turn.
Yep. So anyway, I didn't mean this to bring this as a bad beat story because I don't think it is necessarily, but I think that there's interesting spots with ace king that come up where I think I have consistently throughout my life played Ace King also like very aggressively. And I've been trying to consider spots where I can slow that down a little, and not just go bust with it in spots where I don't need to necessarily. But I think that this was a spot after we've talked about it that is probably one where I could have got this kind of hand exactly to fold, and it's probably one where I should have put all the chips in pre-flop, and then none of this sad story would have happened to me. The river was a 10 of clubs, and so our opponent doubles up, and we're down to about an average stack.
But I do understand that feeling, because I would like to figure that out myself too. Like, you grind and grind and grind, and then, well, let's race for it, and you had this guy covered, so it wasn't for your tournament life, but it does feel like, well, here we go. Let's just rip in Ace King and see what happens. It does kind of feel like that sometimes, and sometimes about half the time it works out, and the other half of the time you're out. And I don't know, am I happy with that trade-off? Like, am I happy doubling up half the time and busting half the time? I don't know. I don't think I always am.
It depends on how you get it in. I mean, if you're getting it in, being very aggressive and taking advantage not only of the strength of your hand, but your fold equity at the same time, that's where you're willing to make that trade-off. I mean, it's not like you're hoping he calls with tens.
Right.
You're hoping that your fold equity is enough to get him off of those hands that have a potential of outdrawing you. But at the same time, if he ends up calling with those hands, you still have a lot of equity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how you have to picture Ace King. It's not like, well, I've been grinding. Now I'm just gonna do a coin flip, see if I win or not.
I like your impression of me.
No, it's more I talk with my hands. I can't help it.
No, I do. No, but I get it. No, I think that's wise. I think that's, not just shoving it in there, being strategic about when to put it in, but it does. Sometimes I do bust those tournaments and I'm like, did I need to do that? So maybe asking the same question you're doing, Chris, is maybe I did, but I'm just, did I overplay ace high here?
And sometimes it's also like I'm more willing to get it in when I've got that average stack. But when you've built up one of these top 10, top 20 stacks, is it really worth
the risk,
the gamble at that point? Or is this stack so valuable right now that I'm going to find better spots to or is that the wrong kind of thinking? Because the more I build this stack, the better, but I find that I actually get a little bit, and this might be something I need to think about or work on, is that when I get one of those top 10 stacks, I get maybe more cautious than in any other time when I'm playing, other than we're nearing the bubble and I need to be, not do stupid things. But it's that time where I'm like, well, this is really valuable. And I know that I can play this really well. If I just, but so that makes me less want to take these coin flips. But I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong approach, and maybe that means I'm not playing them well, and maybe I need to really rethink that. So,
well, if you're going to look for spots to call with Ace King, I'd say the only advice I have is do it in position. If you're looking to find some calling spots with Ace King, don't do it out of position. Just shove it there all the time. RecPoker audience, if you're looking for a tip there. One more quick thing. I was looking at the bet sizing here. And I noticed that if the villain had made a 1/3 pot bet on the flop instead of that really small 1/4 pot sized one, then he would have actually had a really effective shove stack of 1-to-1 on the turn there. So I'm surprised it makes me feel like he didn't quite have a plan for this at every street, because I like this better as a bluff if you're going to overbet the pot on the turn. And so having a very small flop bet to cap your range and then overshoving on the turn makes a lot of sense. But if he's doing it for value, I would have made a slightly bigger flop bet, and then your turn shove is less frightening as an overbet.
Good stuff. Well, Chris, thank you very much, man. You always bring in these great hands, and you think, okay, it's going to be a 10-minute conversation, and then 45 minutes later, here we still are. But I love the conversation. But thank you for bringing that hand in.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, well, let's transition here a little bit. Let's get an update on the home games, and then we'll get a little bit of update on the membership content as well.
All right. Well, our next official home game is going to be May 6th. That'll be our No Limit Hold'em game. Of course, we are still running our social distancing series every night at 8 o'clock through the end of April. And back on April 8th, we had our last mixed game series, Limit Hold'em. And I'm beginning to think that maybe we need to rename this series to the Mike Patrick Invitational.
I think we do.
3 out of the 4 mixed game events that we have held. So
I didn't see that until just now. Oh
you
my
didn't
God,
notice?
Mike!
Stop! I'm gonna. Where do I mute?
Team Canada.
There, I just muted Jim. Right?
So that's an incredibly impressive feat.
It is. It really is.
So, and right now, I think he has double the points of second place.
Nice job, Mike. Seriously, that's awesome.
We need some people to actually, make them sweat to win it. Don't just let them walk away. We need to get people in there giving some good competition.
I agree.
Point of clarification. If COVID-19 makes it so that the World Series of Poker doesn't happen, are we going to have a virtual O Canada song?
It seems only fair.
We could do a backdrop of Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah, a strip backdrop.
Standing there.
Now we're
that backdrop you got now is like right there. You just need one of the Vegas Strip.
But if I did it on the Vegas Strip, it'd be like in front of like 10 people I know, and that's it.
Well, yeah, but then you put it on YouTube, and the world will see
I
it.
suppose.
Well, yeah, there was never an opportunity that it wasn't going to be put up on YouTube.
That's a good point.
Well, there could have been a technical difficulty of some kind. I could accidentally not record the night we do it. I'm a man of my word. I'll leave it up to the panel to decide what to do. I agree to sing "O Canada" on the Strip. If a Canadian wins at least one tournament a month, January through May, it's happened the first 4 months. Who saw it coming? Thank you, Mike Patrick, or whoever you actually.
Mike Patrick.
But I will honor the commitment. So whether that's a virtual thing or we save it till next year, whatever that is, I'm getting a little nervous now. It's just a numbers game. I wasn't nothing against Canada, but I thought, well, how's that going to happen? I mean, there's like two or maybe 3 Canadians at play out of the 50 people. How are they going to win one out of the 2 tournaments every single month? It's crazy.
Oh, this is phenomenal. I'm so excited.
What we need to figure out is, the whole point of this thing is to humiliate Steve. And having it go on YouTube will accomplish part of that. But there was an extra layer of humiliation about being in a very public place,
right,
doing something so ridiculous. So we might need to, find, like, maybe you do it at the Minnesota State Fair in the fall, or maybe we find some other embarrassing location for you to be singing that for.
Yeah, probably a lot more people know him in Minnesota. Like, we can really embarrass him.
Don't make me do it in my hometown. I thought this was going to be.
Do they have a town crier?
Yeah,
do they have a town crier?
We need a town.
Steve? Maybe
I could go stand by the Cobourg, Ontario town crier statue. So this is but it's fun, man. Holy cow, Mike, what a run. And a lot of us haven't played mixed games much, if at all, but I don't think that diminishes the feat at all. I think it's an impressive feat.
Sure,
I've been very, very impressed by his play. I remember even like the first or second game, I thought, wow, this Patty 98 really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, of course, we still have our social distancing series on April 6th. Shorzy 001. I think that's his second win. That's Ben Gours. April 7th, J Boom 0202. Josh Boom.
Good job, Josh.
On April 9th, we had Milo Junk. I do not have a name for that, so you need to contact us with your real name, but your screen name is Milo Junk. April 10th, Red Devil MN, which is Gaurav Aurora. April 11th was Cash 1016, Kevin Leiter. And April 12th is Graphics 16, which I have a first name of Roger and don't have a last name.
Oh, he emailed me because I think that's his second win. I forget. He's from Maine. I cannot remember his last name. I'll look for it. and try to share that before the end of the podcast.
We got a couple repeat winners in there. That's exciting. Some crushers up in the RecPoker social distancing series.
It's a free home game. You professionals, stay home. I would like to win a pin.
I am winning a pin. I am winning a pin in the month of April.
It is clear that the cream is rising to the top, and it's
I'm
clear that I am not there either. So
that's funny. Well, thanks, John, for that stuff, man. Appreciate all you do with that. It's a lot to kind of keep track of. All right, so what do we got for content related stuff?
Yeah, so for member content, we're in April, and so this is still the month where we're talking about odds, SPR, stack to pot ratio, and bet sizing. And we're gearing up for May. So our topic for May is going to be ICM, tournament stages, and approaching multi-day tournaments. I'm really looking forward to those conversations because I think a lot of people are interested in that. A lot of our audience are tournament players, so I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, and I'm so excited about that. And Roger Shute is our friend from Maine who took down that tournament. Well, anything else on that, Chris, at all? On the content stuff?
No,
all right, well, just a heads up for those of you who don't know, if you're a member, this Wednesday, we're doing our first Learning with Partners. Is that what we're calling it, Jim? I forget. What did we land on for a name of this thing?
Yeah, Learning with Partners. That's what we've settled on so far.
And Andrew Feist is going to be leading this conversation. It's a group discussion, and I'm super excited about this. First time we're doing this. I've mentioned this before. We have all of these amazing content partners. I don't know, 10 or 12 like premium content people. And part of our arrangement with them is they're allowing us to show up to 15 minutes a month of their premium content to our members. And so we're going to do this, try it the first time this Wednesday, where for 3 of our different providers, and Sulphur Y, Learn Pro Poker, and is it Red Chip? I forget the third one that we're doing this month. I should know, but
Red Chip or Poker Coaching, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be Poker Coaching. So out of those, we're going to do 3 of those. We're going to show a 15-minute clip or so, and then we're going to have a discussion for another 15, 20 minutes or whatever. We'll do that 3 times, and then we're going to do a walkthrough of, I believe, Learn Pro Poker, one of our partners, where we can kind of have conversation and say, hey, what do they do there? What's behind that curtain? So it's going to be really fun. I think some great conversation, but it's an opportunity if you're a member at RecPoker to get this additional premium content that we're really curating around our topic of the month and get it for no additional cost. So thank you to our partners who are willing to do this, but I'm really, really looking forward to this. I think it's going to really expand the community.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff that we put on ourselves here, the seminars and the book study and these strategy conversations. But just as a participant, I'm really looking forward to these Learning with Partners sessions, because we're literally just going to go behind the scenes on some of the greatest minds in poker right now and get some guided tours of the kind of content that other people are paying a lot of money for because it's that good. So I'm really
phenomenal.
We're lucky to have these. We're lucky to have these great relationships that Steve's been putting together with these partners. Steve, way to go, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy because these people love poker and they love sharing what they know, and it's just been fantastic. But I think it's a great supplement for the stuff that we're already doing for our members. Which, if you're not aware of the stuff that's out there, it's pretty insane how much great content is out there. So anyway, go to rec.poker. Check everything else that we're doing. It's all out there. If you still aren't sure how to stay connected, sign up for the newsletter out there. You just put in your email. We don't sell that. We don't give it away. Just we give you information on a regular basis through email. But thanks, guys. Thanks for being part of this deal. So that's it. I mean, have a great week on and off the felt. I think it's been a fun time to catch up on what's going on in our world's virus related and to dig into a hand together as well. So, guys, have a good week, and we'll chat with you next time.